that would write a book like this. And we're not talking about death. We're talking about a happy death. It will be a happy death. It would be, with all the prayers that go with it, but the preparing for it, I think, is so important. See?
Well, I worked.
What experience do you have before you wrote this book? What give you the zip?
I always wanted to be Della Street.
What?
Della Street. Della Street was Perry Mason's secretary.
Oh.
I thought that was the job from heaven. And the first lawyer I worked for was Jim Heffernan, and he was a tax lawyer. Tax lawyers do estate work, estate administration after a person dies, and estate planning. And I fell in love with that kind of work. It's my favorite kind of legal work. I didn't do divorce, I didn't do litigation, I did estates. And I worked for another tax lawyer named Stephen Frischberg, and I learned so much from them about the distinctions of the words that are put in a document and the words that are left out, and what people do and what they don't understand. I also sold cemetery property for George Washington Memorial Park.
Oh yeah, my brother's buried there. Brother and sister-in-law.
Yeah.
and my brother-in-law, a couple of brother-in-laws.
Well, when a family came in, if there had been pre-planning, they were pretty grounded. They understood they just basically had to come there and sign papers because everything had been taken care of. But that's rare. And people would come in and they tend to overspend when there is a sudden death because even if they don't have the money, they'll just put $15,000 on a credit card.
There's an old saying, don't make any decisions for at least a year after that sudden death of a family. Is that right?
But at the funeral director, you have decisions you have to make like this.
Yeah, he wants to come in the green fold and stuff
That's
right up front.
Right. 10 minutes into it, they're going to ask you how are you going to pay for this? And they need to ask that question because they're not running a charity. I mean, the same thing. A lot of people will do what I call do-it-yourself practice of law or financial planning because they don't want to pay a fee. He's a professional. Why wouldn't you want to pay him for his expertise? Or her. There's a lot of good female lawyers out there too. I got to give the girls a heads up. What would make a person think that you know enough to write your own documents? Well, you could download them from the internet. That's true. You can.
Yeah.
But do you understand them? Do you understand the distinctions between if you put this in and you leave that out? One situation I know, man's mother copied her sister's will from New Jersey. And she copied it verbatim and signed it, had it witnessed and notarized and everything. New Jersey required a different number of witnesses than Pennsylvania. So when her son went to probate his mother's will, it was not acceptable because she didn't have the right number of witnesses. Other than that, it was perfect. But she thought that she could not have to pay a lawyer's fee.
Oh.
So I'm not telling anybody to practice law, practice financial planning. You don't do your own doctoring. You don't go and cut out your own tonsils or something.
Is there something here in this book that will, something like somebody's going to get married and they want an agreement? This guy got a lot of, I know somebody that got married, he said he's going to marry. He said, man, no. He says, because the girl I'm going to marry has a big debt.
A lot of money. Oh.
And so I'm not going to marry until she pays the debt. I mean, love is sweet, but...
I do talk about prenuptial agreements because I'm a firm believer in them, especially for a second marriage. Because by the time you get to the second marriage, you're over 40, let's say. You have children, he has children. You have assets, he doesn't, vice versa. And if you marry without a prenuptial, you've mingled everything. His debt is now yours, your money is now his. And what if it doesn't work? Then you have to go around and get a divorce and split all this stuff. A prenuptial agreement will decide all that stuff in advance. Now, people fight over prenuptials. People will say, oh, you don't really love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't make me sign this.
Oh.
I put in there the exact opposite.
I think that's part of love.
If you really loved me, you would be willing to sign it and you would understand the benefit of it for everybody, and especially your kids. Because if you and your husband marry and you buy a house together and you own it together and the husband dies and you inherit his share of the house, well, his kids don't get anything.
The kids don't get none.
No,
well, there's an inheritance tax too, right?
Well, that's another story. We won't get into inheritance tax. We're talking about ownership.
Florida don't have it.
True.
Pennsylvania has it.
Yes, we do.
Why don't you give the president my money if somebody dies? I need the money when
No,
somebody
no, no.
dies.
Well,
That's
there's two
something else.
taxes now. Inheritance tax is Pennsylvania. Estate tax is the federal government. Now, you have to be pretty wealthy to pay estate tax. But generally in Pennsylvania, if you die owning assets, you'll pay something in inheritance tax. And the rates are different. For children, it's 4.5%. For brothers and sisters, it's 12, and anybody else is 15. It's the only tax I ever knew that went down, because when I started working for tax lawyers, the inheritance tax in Pennsylvania was 6%, and now it's only 4.5%.
How much?
4.5% for children.
Still there.
But it has deductions. Like if you have an estate of $100,000, you don't pay tax on $100,000. You get all your funerals deducted, your medical bills.
Oh,
There's deductions.
So that stuff all be lined up. We're talking about life. We're talking about getting prepared. I want to say that my experience as a police officer, when I joined 1950, 51, I had an 8th grade education, and that's all you needed in Norristown Police. When you become a policeman, I had an 8th grade education.
Okay.
That's all I had. But then later I got an education. I went to community college, GED and all. But I never saw anybody dead other than the funeral parlor. I never saw anybody dead. I had no training. I became a policeman. They swore me in. They give me a gun, a badge, and a nightstick, and put me out in the street. Okay? Now, my experience, drownings, where I had to go. I used to drive the emergency wagon. Drownings, had to take the hooks up out of water. Drownings. Exchange student from Germany was studying in the United States, and he failed or something, and he was so depressed. Sears and Roebuck's out at Logan Square, they used to have the gun racks. He would put the bullet there, put the gun in there, boom, blow his head out, and I was the first one in the scene with all his blood, all that blood all over the place. And I went home, and my wife had spaghetti. I was, oh my God. But that, hangings and all. So I didn't, and then when the parents or the family comes together, what do we do? Who do we call? What do we do? And so it's nice to say, well, we know what to do. We're prepared. And I think it's the same thing with any athlete or anybody, a lawyer, preparing his case before he goes into court. Anything, prepare yourself. And that's what I'm talking to students. Get your education while you're here, while you're young. Get that education. Because when you get older, it's tough. So that's from the Cisco kid. Words of wisdom.
Even in the Girl Scouts, they told us, be prepared. You were always supposed to be prepared. And,
right. Prepare yourself before you get married. Right.
That's the subject.
That's something else.
I'll wait here. That's the subject of my next book.
That's the next book? Oh, what's that going to be? Something like, give me a hint.
I'm going to call it For Better, For Worse.
For better or worse?
It's part of the marriage.
What's that mean?
Well, part of the marriage vows. I take you for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, to love and to cherish and all that. That's where the words come, for better, for worse.
Well, I'm going to write a book. Bob and weave, slip and slide, run and hide. and in boxing, keep your trunks off the canvas.
That's a good thought.
Right. But what is the most important thing of this book that we're going to get to the people? What's the most important thing?
I want people to think about what they want to do with the rest of their life and how to go about making it happen. And you start with a thought, and then you have conversations, and you take action ultimately, or not, because it's all about choices and consequences. You can make no choices. You don't have to do any end-of-life planning. You don't have to do any legal estate planning. You don't have to do any funeral planning, and you'll die anyhow. You don't need to do anything in this book. And I've said that in several places. But if you do, the benefits for your family and ultimately for you can't be calculated. I mean, if you die broke and leave your children with debt, that's not a good legacy. That's not what you want. And the book is to make people think.
Do you think, now, where can I buy this book?
Oh, well, you can buy it on Amazon, on the internet. You can buy it from the website of the publisher, which is, what do they call that? Isn't that awful? Buybooksontheweb.com. You can buy it from me at my email address, which is magicjeannie@comcast.net, spelled MGKGNE, Magic Jeannie.
Don't you think, I don't know, don't you think every funeral director should push these books?
I'm all in favor of that.
I think preparing. I think that it's the same thing with a restaurant. They want to get good food. They want to get something prepared. Why aren't the funeral directors be pushing this book? Let people be prepared.
Well, that's up to me to make sure that they know the book exists. I'm working through it. It was only just published on July 26th, but I'm working on it.
Well, there's a couple locations, maybe stores that would take care. Would want to sell them. Locations.
I'm working on that too.
All right. Is there anything you want to wrap this up with? We got our half hour's over.
This book is 5 books in one. You're not going to get this much information in one place, and you're not going to get it from a lawyer because they charge by the hour.
All right. So here it is, Norristown Times-Herald. Great article. We got a celebrity here. Keep your eye on this book. Believe me, it's something. And, today we're in the month of October. This would be a great Christmas gift.
Oh.
A great Christmas gift for your family. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm losing my voice. Salud.
Thank you.
Now, thank you very much for allowing us to come into your home, and may God bless each and every one of you. Grazie, grazie, grazie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is one of the best shows, important show that I ever put on. It's about life, my family, the family that left me, that are up in heaven, my friends, my relations. So God bless each and every one of you, okay? And away we go. Grazie. Here we go.
Thank you so much.
Allah salud, and that means to your health. You got your health, baby. You got everything. And here's a little token of appreciation.